All the big guns were out in force in a championship that's been running for over a decade and gets more competitive with each outing. These days, the Stannic South African Production Car Championship is split into two categories, with classes A, B, C and D carrying senior status. Here, just 2 points separated Sean Watson-Smith and Chris Boucher, while in the Junior Championship for classes E and F, there was a healthy lead for young Clint Weston. And back in action in Velcom was versatile Cape Tonian Steve Wyndham, a former South African production car champion.
Peter Cady spoke to me a little while ago and asked me if I'd like to drive the car, so I said no, I'd love to get back into Group N again, especially in a BMW. I've never driven one before. And we got here on Friday. I jumped into the car and straight away we were quick. I mean, they've done an excellent job in preparing the car, the team, and it's a nice team to work for. The guys are here to have a bit of fun, and we've also popped pole, which is great.
Huge Stannic Group N fields mean splitting classes, and with classes A, C and E racing together in the first qualifying heat, 3 BMWs were in the first 3 grid positions in Class A. Opel dominated Class C and were also in pole position in Class E. All set for the first qualifying race, with a mad drag to the S's. Always a lap 1 danger point at Goldfields Raceway when the lights turn to green. Race cam action from Devin Juby in the MTN Nissan Maxima. Juby got a flyer but was forced to tuck in behind Anthony Taylor and Robbie Smith at the S's. The Class A cars were line astern, and further back in the field there was mayhem with Class C and E cars flying all over the place and emerging out of a great dust cloud as drivers got back onto the circuit. One of the casualties was Colin Ellison in the white Opel Kadett, and he had plenty of rear bodywork damage. Back to Devin Juby and race cam action down the longest straight in South African racing, with Anthony Taylor and Robbie Smith in the BMWs pulling away from the big MTN Nissan Maxima. Into the braking area at Castrol Corner, with Smith in the red Firehawk car challenging Taylor, while Juby and Wyndham in the second K Eddy BMW were leaning all over each other. Back at the S's, marshals were pushing the Mark Edwards Nissan Sentra out of harm's way, with the battered Nissan having made heavy contact with Ellison's Opel Kadett. Up front, there was some hectic action with Smith squeezing past Taylor at the subway. Wyndham had also nosed ahead of Juby, and the Firestone Firehawk BMW led the 2K Eddy Beamers, with Juby and reigning champion John Craig giving chase in the MTN Nissan Maximas. While this battle raged at the front of the field, further back in the pack, a confident Stephen Taylor, brother of Anthony, found himself at the front of the Class E field in the Sanyo Opel Kadett.
Yeah, we seem to have a bit of an upper hand this weekend. We came here and did a little bit of homework. We've out-qualified the guys by 1.2 seconds, so it should be a fairly easy victory for me, just as long as the car holds out and the tyres are long enough.
With the unfortunate Mark Edwards reduced to a role as spectator, the talented Taylor led from another Nissan Sentra driven by former Stannic Group N champion Neil Stephen. Back with the leaders, and high drama on the Tony Viana straight with plumes of smoke pouring from the Smith Firestone Firehawk BMW. It looked as though a motor had blown in a big way, with the veteran Smith quickly pulling off the circuit. That pushed Devin Juby and John Craig up a place each in the MTN Nissan Maximas, while behind the Class A cars an almighty fight had broken out in Class C, where it was a case of Opel Kadett versus Honda Ballard.
It's slipstreaming down the main straight at the back. That's what worked in qualifying yesterday. I seemed to be in warm-up this morning, it felt good. By myself it went well. And we seem to be one ahead of the Hondas, driving by ourselves, but in the race it's going to be a different story with everyone going to be behind us.
A 5-car Class C train and no quarter asked or given. Lap 6 of 8, with a 2-horse race developing in Class A between race leader Anthony Taylor and Steve Wyndham in the K Eddy BMWs. The big Nissan Maximas were a handful in the tighter sections at Goldfields Raceway, and Devin Juby took a little off-roading with teammate John Craig right on his bumper. While 2 Nissans chased after 2 BMWs at the front of the field, reigning Class E champion Grant Fletcher had moved up to the front of the huge Class C scrap. Tucked in behind Fletcher were Grant Wenzel and the Stresso Honda Ballard, poleman Leroy Poulter in the second Firehawk Opel Kadett, former Class D champion Dave Kopker in the safety tyre Honda, and Mike Frankel in the Nashua Honda. Down the pit straight, Wenzel looked to be trying to will a few more horsepower out of the Honda Ballard, with Fletcher weeding around to try and break the slipstream as they blasted past the pits. Wenzel and company were going with him, and through the S's and into the long save-out sweep, the 5 cars were tied together, with Pretoria teenager Poulter, one of the many rising stars emerging in South African motor racing, right in the thick of the fray. Another talented youngster was where he expected to be, and that was at the front of the Class E field. Stephen Taylor in the Sanyo Opel Kadett had a slight cushion over the ever-spectacular Louis House, who'd moved ahead of Neil Stephen. Taylor had already set a new lap record, while at Castrol Corner, the charge of the Class C brigade was a recipe for disaster, and just about everyone got it wrong. Leroy Poulter went farming, Grant Fletcher spun, and Grant Wenzel and Dave Kopka joined in the act. Mike Frankel gratefully accepted a gap between Kopka and Wenzel and went through into second place behind Poulter. Wenzel got going behind Fletcher, with Kopka the last to rejoin the fray. The Class C scrap had always threatened something out of the ordinary, and Poulter was again a little ragged through the subway complex, but was still in the lead, but now followed by Frankel, Fletcher, Wenzel and Kopka. In motor racing, scenarios often change in an instant. The final lap, with Steve Wyndham still tucked in behind race leader Anthony Taylor, who, like his little boot Stephen, had set a new lap record. The Nissan Maximas were still chasing after the K-Eddy BMWs, but theirs looked like a lost cause. Stephen Taylor was now well in control of Class E and had gradually extended his lead over Louis Hoos to more than 5 seconds. Having his first outing of the season, Hoos was around 8 seconds ahead of veteran Neil Stephen, and barring accidents, that scenario wasn't going to change. Stephen was not yet out of the woods and had youngster Rui Lima within striking distance, although time was running out for Lima. If Class E looked cut and dried, that was far from the case in Class C, where the sands had shifted again. Now Frankel in the Nashua Honda and Wenzel in the Stresso car were ahead of the two factory Firestone Firehawk Opel Cadets. Frankel had the advantage over Wenzel at Castrol Corner, but on the run to the subway complex it was Wenzel who had the inside line, and Frankel was forced to give way. With Leroy Poulter dropping off the pace, it was Grant Fletcher who was trying to put some late pressure on the Honda Motorsport entries. A 1-2 for BMW in Class A, with John Craig getting past teammate Devin Juby for third. Grant Wenzel and Honda finally won the Class C battle ahead of the Opel Cadets, with a double for the Taylor family, with Stephen Taylor strolling home in Class E.
It's very difficult, a lot of changing places. The Opels were unlucky, they took each other out. Everything went well for me. A lot of slipstreaming involved, it really went well. My teammates were very kind, sort of didn't block me in any corners, it went really well.